So, dear friends, still now we had discussed the most of the important topics related from the read number two. In last session, we had started the concept of risk management, assessment, and the risk identification. As you know that in that lecture also we had discussed very much about what do you mean by the risk, what is the definition of risk, what is the definition of risk management. So whenever we are founding or we are going to establish the particular organizations, at that time we need to consider the several kind of a certain risk or uncertain kind of a risk, so that you will be providing a better solution or better planning or better, we can say that solutions for the uh, overcome from such kind of a risk. As in management we also discussed that uh, whenever we are going to occur such kind of a risk and certain risk also, at that time we need to properly evaluate it, we need to properly understand it, then we need to proper assessment required for such kind of a risk, then we need to provide a particular solutions. So that is the part of the management. This is a process how to handle the risk. As we had also discussed the various examples regarding the risk, uncertain kind of risk. That is the example, best example for the in day-to-day life you had seen, that is the corona. So regarding such activities, whenever the organizations want to set up their business online, at that time there is a Flipkart, Amazon, Facebook also. The last time you had also seen the various tragedy occurred with the particular Facebook and Instagram also. So that time whenever they want to set up their business online, at that time they need to finding the various kind of a risk associated with that particular thing, because at the time of setup of the business, or they may providing their customer, or they may providing their customers may be the reliance for the such a transaction also, they need to do with their particular application, they need to do with the particular websites. So from taking the customer information, we need to assure them that your information will be kept safe with us. At the time of transaction of payment also, you need to provide a better security also. So you know that hackers or criminal minded person may try to hack the system in any way. They have the different kind of a skill, different kind of a tools, so that they need to identify the weaknesses of your particular networks, and then they will be entered into your system, so that or hack your particular website. You know that SQL injection, they will get entered into your particular databases, JavaScript code, JavaScript scripting, then scripting malware that will be entered the JavaScript code into your previous codes. Such kind of a vulnerable kind of activity that will be associated with the particular hackers, and they need to finding out the different techniques to get hack or stolen the data from the particular website also, from the particular database also, from the particular e-commerce application also, any transaction that you are going to do with the particular site. As you know that in a last, I think also heard that most of the applications that will need to provide the better security. As you know that WhatsApp will provide the end-to-end kind of encryption techniques. So it means your message will be not display or not hacked by the third party. So but it is possible that hacker may try to uh, take some new technique and new tools to get hack your particular, to modify your particular WhatsApp messages also. Recently we had just gone through the news channels that Pegasus, you may heard about it on the news channel also, government may try to use our Pegasus. So that is nothing but the spyware who are going to, we can say that बोलते ना आप उसको कि आपके ऊपर नज़र रख रहे हैं कि व्हाट काइंड ऑफ एक्टिविटी यू आर गोइंग टू डू with your particular devices. where to whom you are going to chat, to whom you are going to call, and all the things. Even if your data, camera, mobile devices, camera, and all the activity will be get trapped by the particular spyware. It is a Pegasus. That news was recently gone through the particular news channels, and such kind of hacking techniques may be used by the different people to get the data, to get to know their particular behavior, identification, and all the things to use or to achieve their particular objectives. So risk assessment is a part of the unit number 2. For each identified component and risk which has a clearly significant or possibly significant position, it should be assessed to establish qualitatively and estimate the value. So what going to you are going to discuss about the risk means, you know that key in the risk also that there are the number of threats, that is human threats, then the environmental threats, and the outsider threat, natural threat will be occurred, and they may try to destroy, damage your particular system. They may need to get into your system and try to get your data from the system. So to avoid such kind of a risk, you need to provide proper assessment, you need to provide better protection, so that key you are going to identify that risk and you are going to provide a better assessment and qualitatively and estimate the value for such kind of a risk. So risk assessment, assessing the risk is the process of determining the likelihood of the threat being exercised against the vulnerability and the resulting impact from a successful compromises. That is, the determine the relative risk for each of the vulnerabilities. So if a risk occurred, you are going to prioritize risk, high risk, low risk, and medium risk, for example, then how that will be impact on the particular data, impact on the particular organizations. So that will need to be properly assessing that particular risk means you need to determine the threat that being exercised against the vulnerability and that weaknesses that will be available there. So for that, how that will be properly assess that risk regarding the vulnerabilities. A risk assessment, assigning a risk rating or a score to each specific information assets, useful in evaluating the relative risk and making comparative rating later in the risk control process. So what are the risks available, how you are going to prioritize it, how it will be damage your particular system, how it will be may stolen the data or may get lost into your organizations. So on the basis of that, you need to properly require assessment for that risk. So you need to provide proper score on the basis of their particular impact. So although all elements of the risk management cycle are important, risk assessment provides the foundation for other elements of the cycle. In particular, risk assessment provides basis for establishing appropriate policies and selecting cost-effective techniques to implement these particular policies. As considering the method of a risk assessment, there are various methods assessing the risk. That is the first, that is a quantitative risk assessment. Second one, that is a qualitative risk assessment, and the quantitative and the qualitative, that is the third one. That is the three kind of methods which will be associated with the risk assessment. Name itself suggests that ki qualitative or quantitative, that will be defined that ki how you are going to properly assess the risk, you are going to provide proper points or the score to the particular risk. Generally, as considering in the quantitative risk assessment, that is the first method for the risk assessment, generally estimate a value of a information system components as information system, business process, recovery cost, etc. Means what kind of a quantity will be available with you, means as compared to business assessment business assets or the information system that you are going to available with you, that value we need to estimate properly. So all the system component that you are going to use for that, what is the estimated value will be there, that is will be the cost will be required for the recovery also, that will be considered in the first method of the quantitative risk assessment. Risk can be measured in terms of direct and indirect costs based on the damaging the event will occur, the cost of potential losses, the cost of mitigating actions that could be taken. So, if the risk occurred, if the tragedy will be occurred, and if your system get damaged, so on the basis of that, what kind of a direct or indirect kind of measurement will be decided by the particular organizations. So that will be depend on the particular their particular how damage will be occurred at the time, cost of potential losses, what is the losses will be there, and what is the losses occurred, potential kind of losses will be occurred, so that will be may harm to the organization. So that will be considered in the quantitative risk assessment. Then we are going to take actions to get overcome such kind of losses and such kind of damages. So that will be considered in the first method of a risk assessment. Second one, that is a qualitative risk assessment. This approach can be taken by defining risk in a more subjective and general terms such as high, medium, and the low. So, what is the high risk available there? How they are going to impact on the system? Medium and low kind of a risk that will be associated, how it will be impacted on the particular system that will be considered. In this regard, qualitative assessment depend more on the expertise, experience, and judgment of those conducting the assessment. So as considering the qualitative kind of approach or risk assessment, you need to properly provide or that assessment will be there. So on the basis of the experience and their knowledge, they need to do their particular judgment regarding the risk assessment. Qualitative risk assessment typically give a risk result of a high, moderate, and low. However, by providing the impact and the likelihood definitions tables and the description of that impact, it is possible to adequately communicate the assessment to the organization management. Third one, that is a quantitative and the qualitative. It is also possible to use combination of the qualitative and the quantitative kind of methods. So quantitative risk measured is the standard way of measuring the risk in many fields such as insurance, but is not compulsory or commonly used to measure the risk in the information system, because quantitative risk measurement will be uh, a huge amount they are going to finding out the risk which will be associated with. So insurance company has a huge amount of data that will be needed, and that will be may prolong for the number of years. So such kind of a risk may be come under the quantitative kind of a risk. There are the two reasons that claim for this are, that is the difficulties in identifying and assigning a value of all components, moral effect could not measured by quantitative measurement, the lack of statistical information that will make it possible to determine frequency. The risk assessment tools that are used today for information system are measurement of a qualitative risk. How to assess the risk? So risk assessment will be needed for the organization. At that time, they need to follow some step-by-step procedure to assess the particular risk. So in this diagram also you can see that first of all you need to identify the particular threats. So after identifying the particular threat, you need to properly prioritize it, classify it On the basis of that identification of threat, you will be going to decide how they are going to harm the particular assets or how they are going to damage the particular system. So after that, identifying the various kind of risk or a number of risks we are going to listed. So you need to again find out the various kind of vulnerabilities that will be associated with the particular networks, that will be associated with the particular system, that will be associated with the particular information sources. So all the vulnerabilities, that is the weaknesses of the particular organizations networks or the websites, the data, anything that you need to properly identify from where they are going to attack you, from where they are going to enter into the particular organizations. That is the part. So if once you are going to identify the number of vulnerabilities associated with the particular organizations, then you need to identify relating threat to the particular vulnerabilities. Means what kind of a threat we are going to classify, identify the threats on the basis of the we are going to prioritize also. So we are going to just getting the idea that this threat will be got entered into the particular system from the these vulnerabilities. This threat will be attacked on the particular system from the this weak point. So if you know, once you know the weaknesses of the anything, you are going to harm that particular thing from that particular weaknesses. So you are going to identify the threats, that threat, how that going to impact or that going to enter through the vulnerabilities, determining the likelihood. So on the basis of that thread, you need to properly find out which thread will be occurred from the which weaknesses. Then we had evaluate the particular impact for each risk. So if a risk occurred, then how it will be get impacted on the particular system, how it will get damaged the particular system, that we need to identify in this step. So this diagram also explain that key how the external attacks will be occurred there, how they are going to hack the particular web servers and the database servers, and there then internal attacks also available there, that is the employee, the persons, human resources that will be again attack on the particular system from the internal way. Then they are also provide you how the internal misuse, that is that the person who are don't know exactly how to use the particular data and how to store data, how to modify that particular data, and which kind of a precaution will be taken. So if they don't know, then they will be may get the use of the particular misuse will be doing there. So that we need to properly identifying the risk will be occurred there. As considering identifying the vulnerabilities, so how each of the threat that are possibly are or likely could be perpetrated and leads the organization's assets and their vulnerabilities. So what is the we can see that key threat will be there, how they are going to attack on the system, that we need to identify here. Vulnerabilities can be identified by numerous means. So different methodologies will be there associated with the to identifying the vulnerabilities. That is a start with commonly available vulnerability list, that you need to identify the number of lists you have to do there, where the weaknesses will be there, from where they need to be care about, and from there attacker will be then attack on this particular system. Then working with the system owners or other individuals with knowledge of system or organizations, start to identify the vulnerabilities that apply to the particular system. Specific vulnerabilities can be found by reviewing vendor websites and the public vulnerabilities archives. So that may need to be common vulnerabilities will be there. So we need to identify the common or national kind of a vulnerability databases. Relating threat to the vulnerabilities, that is not every threat or action threat can be exercised against every vulnerability, that we had discussed that previously, that ki number of threat will be there, and it is means we not to judge there that ki that thread will be get entered through that vulnerabilities. So every thread that will be not taking action through the each vulnerabilities. So maybe we need to identify there, we need to see that ki from where which vulnerabilities will be get ready to entered through the particular system. For example, a threat of a flood obviously applies to vulnerabilities of a lack of a contingency planning, but not to vulnerabilities of a failure to change the default authenticators. Then defining the likelihood is a estimation of the probability that a threat will succeed in achieving the undesirable events. Is the overall rating, often a numerical value on a defined scale of the probability that a specific vulnerability will be exploited. So here they are going to provide that key on the basis of the low, moderate, and high risk. You need to provide proper estimations and the proper definitions regarding the period of one thread, that how will be get exercised, that will be available there. As considering the impact, using the information documented during the risk identification process, assigning weighted score based on the value of each information assets. So how it will be get we can say as a considering CIA model, that is a confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So how the low, moderate, and high risk will be get impacted on the particular organizations. So as considering assessment part, the who do the particular assessment of the risk, that is the risk assessment is carried out by the team of people who have a knowledge of a specific area of the business, means the expertise person and knowledgeable person with the particular domain of the business organizations, that may play the role of the people or team that going to identify the risk assessment. It is the responsibility of each community of interest to manage the risk. So number of people will be there, and all the people who are going to be part of the organizations that may try to manage the risk. Each community has a role to play. Information security best understand the threat and attacks that introduce risk into the organizations. Management and the users, that is play the part in the early detection and the response process. They also ensure sufficient resources are allocated. Then the information technology must assist in a building secure system and operating from them safely. So that the role that maybe community will be play, that is management and the particular users, security, information security, and the particular information technology, that will be the part of the risk assessment. So on the basis of that, management and user may they may try to detect the particular risk, and they try to provide the particular processes through the response given to the particular risk. So on the basis of that information technology, you need to properly give the safeguard. You need to use the proper updated kind of applications, so that you will get protected from the such kind of a threat. So these are the some parts which will be we had seen in the organizations ki how that risk may get losses in their particular businesses. So up till now we had discusses the very much points regarding the risk. So from first of the PPTs, we had gone through the risk, that is the object or the person or the entity that represent a danger, harm, or the loss of an asset. We call it as a risk. anything that will be harm the system, organizations, that will be the risk associated with that particular thing. So we need to properly process identifying the assessing and evaluating the particular risk. That is the part of the risk management. Also we had seen in the lectures that how the risk life cycle associated. So how the threat agent will be get entered into the organizations through the vulnerabilities, and how it will lead to the particular risk. If will they get entered, how that possibility that they will be damage the system, the assets, then how we are going to provide the particular safeguard, that is the life cycle for the risk. Also we had going to see that how that graph and that diagram, that is the also with the risk management cycle. Risk management is nothing but that you need to that also that seen that definition that how you know to your enemy and their weaknesses, and then if you know your strength and weaknesses also, then how you are going to possibly that you are going to attack on that particular enemy. Then identification of the risk, on that we had seen that how we need to identify the particular risk, we need to classify and prioritizing the particular risk. Then we had gone through the information assets, that is the information assets will be available with the organizations. In that we had gone through the people, then the employees, non-employees, then the procedure we are going to follow, then the data we are going to use, then the software hardware parts that we are going to use, and how we are going to take care about all the things if they are going to provide the different kind of a risk in their particular system. So how it will be get harm to the particular organizations. Then we had also gone through the primary sources of risk items, that is the human threats, outside and natural threats, and the environmental kind of a threat. That is the human threat, maybe the inside the people, that is a virus infection, unauthorized kind of access, and the network based attacks, that will be the part of the human threat. They are going to harm the system through the way through the particular humans, that is the human threat. Then we had gone through the particular environmental threats. Then we had gone through the primary sources also. Then we had gone through the risk assessment. What is the risk assessment, assigning the risk, and the risk assessment definitions. Then the various methods of a risk assessment, that is the quantitative risk assessment, qualitative risk assessment, and the qualitative and the quantitative kind of a risk assessment. Then we are going to go on through the particular steps, that is how assess the particular risk and all the things. Then also we had gone through the diagram that will be provide you the how identify the particular risk. Then identifying vulnerabilities, that is a part how we are going to identify that vulnerabilities. We had just gone through the particular thing. So I hope ki all of you may get clear your doubts, and we had stopped here the unit number 2. So from the next lecture we'll try to consider or start the unit number 3 of cyber security and digital forensic. So maybe from the after the vacations we are going to gone through the particular uh, system. So syllabus, start the lecture. Thank you very much. Thank you.